Scandinavia is a term people often use, but not always correctly. In its strict geographical sense, Scandinavia refers to three countries: Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. These nations share linguistic roots, deep historical ties, and a connected cultural evolution shaped by the sea, the cold, and centuries of trade across the north. Many travelers mix up Scandinavia with the Nordic countries. The Nordic region includes Finland and Iceland, plus the autonomous territories of Greenland, the Faroe Islands, and Åland. They belong to the same northern family, but they are not part of Scandinavia itself. Starting the journey with this clarity helps you understand why these three Scandinavian countries often feel familiar to each other, yet extremely different when you move from one to the next. Travelers come to Scandinavia for a combination that's difficult to find elsewhere. Nature, design, and culture are the three pillars of the region's identity. The landscapes are the first thing visitors talk about. Long fjords carved by ancient glaciers, forests that seem to have no end. Arctic coasts that change color with the season, and islands so small they barely rise above the waterline. But the appeal is not only outdoors. Scandinavia also represents a specific mindset: clean architecture, efficient cities, strong environmental values, and a calm, organized rhythm of life. The region doesn't require grand stories or symbolic language. What stands out is what you can directly see and feel. The sound of bicycles passing in a Copenhagen street at rush hour, the crisp air blowing from an Oslo fjord in early morning, or the low northern sun shining on Stockholm's yellow buildings. Understanding Scandinavia begins with understanding its geography. Norway stretches along the Atlantic with a coastline full of curves and narrow entries. This creates the fjord landscape that made the country famous. Sweden, to the east, is calmer in shape: dense forests, thousands of lakes, and a long spine of mountains shared with Norway. Denmark, by contrast, is low, flat, and coastal, built around islands and peninsulas that connect the North Sea to the Baltic. Three countries, three different environments, but tied together through shared history and an instinct for practical, elegant solutions to living in a cold climate. Scandinavia is also known for sustainability, not as a trend, but as daily life. Cities like Copenhagen, Oslo, and Stockholm are designed for walking, cycling, and public transport. Hydropower, wind energy, and recycling systems are part of the basic infrastructure. Visitors notice it immediately. Clean streets, drinking water straight from the tap, easy access to nature, and a sense that environmental responsibility isn't something special, it's simply normal. As we open this journey, picture the region from above. The plain crosses Norway's west coast, where the land breaks into dark, narrow corridors of water surrounded by steep mountains. A few minutes later, the view changes to Sweden's archipelago. Small green islands scattered over calm blue water. Flying south toward Denmark, the landscape opens into fields, wind turbines, and compact cities connected by bridges. These first images introduce the diversity of the region. Fjords, islands, forests, harbors, modern skylines, and Arctic light, all within a relatively small part of the world. This is what makes Scandinavia ideal for a travel documentary. The contrasts are sharp, but the transitions are smooth. One moment you're walking on a wooden pier in Stockholm. The next you're driving through the Norwegian mountains. And a few hours later, you're crossing the Øresund Bridge into Copenhagen. Oslo is one of Europe's smallest capitals, but it stands out because of how it integrates nature, architecture, and everyday life. The city sits at the end of the Oslo fjord, surrounded by hills and forests, and more than half of its area is protected green space. For visitors, Oslo is a capital that feels open, breathable, and easy to navigate. A place where you can walk from a modern opera house to a forest trail in less than an hour. Oslo matters because it represents the core of modern Norway. Environmental responsibility, quality of life, and functional design. This isn't a city built for show. It's built for living well. Public transport is efficient. Cycling is common. And electric cars dominate the roads. Clear water fills the harbor. Locals swim during summer. And the city's heating system uses renewable sources. All of this gives Oslo a clean, organized rhythm that travelers notice immediately. A good starting point is the Oslo Opera House, one of the city's most iconic structures. This white marble building rises directly out of the water, and its sloping roof invites visitors to walk on top. The surface reflects sunlight in a sharp, almost metallic way, and from the upper levels you get a clear view of the fjord, the harbor, and the Barcode district. Inside, the Opera House is known for its modern stages and acoustic design. But for many visitors, the main attraction is simply standing outside, feeling the cold air coming from the water, and watching locals use the roof like a public plaza. From the opera, you can walk directly into the Barcode district, a row of narrow, irregularly shaped high-rises that has become a symbol of Oslo's new skyline. The buildings look different from each angle, and the space between them creates small corridors of light and shadow. Cafes, offices, and apartments fill the lower levels, making the area feel alive throughout the day. It's a contrast to Oslo's older neighborhoods, and it shows how the city blends historic calm with modern ambition. A short walk from here takes you to Akerselva, a river that cuts through the city and serves as one of its most popular walking routes. The path follows old mills, small waterfalls, brick factories turned into art spaces, and green parks where locals sit during warm months. It's one of the clearest examples of Oslo's connection to nature. A river flowing through residential areas, clean enough to attract birds and fish, and lined with spaces for biking, jogging, or simply sitting near the water. Across the harbor lies Bygdøy, a peninsula known for its museums and quiet residential areas. Ferries and buses connect the city center to this cultural hub, home to the Viking Ship Museum, the Fram Museum, and the Norwegian Folk Museum. Each offers insight into a different part of Norwegian history, from thousand-year-old ships to polar exploration to traditional wooden houses. The surroundings are just as notable. Forest paths, small beaches, and calm streets that give the area a relaxed, almost rural feeling, despite being minutes from downtown. For food, waterfront areas like Sørenga, Akerbrygge, and Tjuvholmen provide some of the city's best dining experiences. Food halls such as Oslo Street Food or Vippa mix international dishes with local specialties. And many places offer views of the fjord. During summer, people gather along the docks with ice cream or seafood plates. And the air carries a mix of saltwater and fresh cooking. Walking is one of the easiest ways to experience Oslo. Distances are short, pavements are wide, and the route from the Opera House to the City Hall to Aker Brygge gives a complete introduction to the city's architecture and waterfront atmosphere. In winter, the light is dim and the air sharp. In summer, the days stretch late into the evening. Bergen is one of Norway's most photographed cities, and for good reason. It sits between mountains and the sea. And its position on the west coast made it an important trading center for centuries. Bergen was once part of the Hanseatic League, a powerful network of merchant cities around the Baltic and North Seas. The German traders who lived here handled stockfish, grain, furs, and other goods that shaped the city's growth. Today, the remains of that era survive in Bryggen, the colorful row of wooden warehouses that is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Bryggen is usually the first place travelers visit. The wooden buildings are narrow, slightly leaning, and painted in deep reds, yellows, and browns. Walking through the small alleyways behind the main facades gives a feeling of stepping into the city's working past. The floors creak, the beams are exposed, and the smell of old timber mixes with fresh air from the harbor. Many of the buildings now host craft shops, small cafes, and artist studios, but the layout remains almost unchanged from centuries ago. Bergen is famous for being the starting point for fjord travel. Most tours toward Norway, Sognefjord, and Hardangerfjord depart from here. And the city's location makes it easy to combine urban culture with natural landscapes. Boats leave from the harbor throughout the day, and the sight of ferries slowly moving out into the misty water is a constant background scene. The weather changes quickly on this coast, sun one moment, rain the next, which gives the city a shifting cinematic atmosphere. One of Bergen's signature experiences is taking the Floibenen funicular to the top of Mount Fløyen. The ride takes only a few minutes, climbing steeply above the rooftops before opening into a wide view of the city, its surrounding mountains, and the clusters of islands in the distance. At the top, paths lead into forests where locals run, walk their dogs, or simply sit on benches overlooking the city. On clear days, you can see the entire harbor. On rainy days, low clouds move across the hillside and soften the view, giving it a calm, muted feel. Back down in the city center, the Bergen Fish Market is another important stop. Located at the inner harbor, it has served fishermen and locals since the 1200s. Today, the market is a mix of traditional stalls and modern indoor food counters offering salmon, shrimp, crab, and local specialities like fish cakes or hot seafood soups. The air here always carries a mix of salt, cooking steam, and the smell of fresh catch. For many travelers, it's one of the easiest ways to taste everyday Norwegian seafood culture. A few steps from the market, narrow wooden alleys lead into the city's older residential areas. These neighborhoods are filled with white-painted wooden houses, steep stairways, and small gardens tucked between walls. The streets curve tightly, reflecting the city's medieval layout. Walking here gives a sense of Bergen on a personal scale. Quiet, compact, and built to fit the uneven terrain. The weather is part of the Bergen experience. The city is known for frequent rain, and the sound of raindrops hitting tiled roofs is something visitors get used to quickly. Locals carry umbrellas and bright rain jackets, and the wet streets reflect the colors of buildings and signs. When the rain stops, the city often feels freshly washed, with water running down gutters and small streams forming along the pavement. From the harbor, boats depart toward Norway, one of the narrowest fjords in Norway, and a UNESCO site. Watching the boats leave is a daily reminder of why Bergen earned its reputation as the gateway to the fjords. The transition from the busy city port to the quiet, steep-sided fjords is one of the defining contrasts of Western Norway. Norway's fjords are among the most recognizable landscapes in Europe, and understanding them begins with geology. A fjord forms when a glacier moves through a valley, carving it deeper and steeper over thousands of years. When the ice melts, the sea fills the space, creating a long, narrow waterway bordered by high rock walls. The result is a landscape where ocean and mountains meet directly, with no flat land in between. This combination is what makes Norwegian fjords unique. Deep water, sharp elevations, and a sense of being inside a natural corridor. There are many fjords along Norway's coast, but a few stand out because of their size, accessibility, and scenic value. Norwayfjord, Geirangerfjord, and Sognefjord are the three most visited, and each has its own character. Norwayfjord, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is one of the narrowest fjords in the country. In some sections, it measures less than 250 meters across, with mountains rising more than 1,000 meters on both sides. Boats travel slowly here so passengers can take in the details. Small farms on impossibly steep slopes, thin waterfalls running down the rock, and sharp turns that reveal new views every few minutes. The water is calm, and the quiet environment amplifies the sound of falling water. When boats pass close to the rock walls, the spray hits the deck, giving travelers a direct sense of the fjord's scale. Geirangerfjord, also UNESCO listed, is known for its dramatic waterfalls and high viewpoints. The most famous waterfalls are the Seven Sisters, the Suder, and the Bridal Veil, names based on their shape, not on stories or symbolism. Ferries move between Geiranger and Hellesylt. Passing these landmarks at close range. Above the fjord, the Ornesvingen, Eagles Road Viewpoint, and Flydals Juve offer wide, elevated views that show the entire fjord in one frame. The combination of cliffs, deep water, and hanging farms gives this fjord a particularly vertical feeling. The Sognefjord is the longest and deepest fjord in Norway, stretching 205 kilometers inland. Its branches vary in character. From wide open sections to narrow channels lined with orchards and villages. Because of its length, Sognefjord connects multiple communities, and ferries here operate like everyday transportation, not just sightseeing tours. The fjord also links to the Flam Railway, one of the steepest train lines in the world, which climbs from sea level to high mountain terrain. This makes Sognefjord an easy region to explore using a mix of rail, road, and boat. Transportation is an essential part of the fjord experience. Ferries run year-round, forming a network that allows travelers to move smoothly between towns, viewpoints, and hiking areas. Modern hybrid ferries reduce environmental impact, and many offer open decks where passengers can stand close to the water. During the journey, waterfalls often appear suddenly around bends, some strong enough that the mist reaches the boat. Norway's scenic highways also play a major role. Roads like the national tourist routes pass through mountain passes, hairpin turns, and coastal roads that offer continuous views of fjords, glaciers, and cliffs. Rest stops and viewpoints are built carefully, often using concrete, wood, and steel in minimalist designs that frame the landscape without distracting from it. These stops provide safe places to stand. Take photographs, or simply watch the light shift across the water. Some of the best fjord viewpoints require short walks. Platforms like Stegastein above Orlens Fjord stretch out over empty air, giving an unobstructed view of the entire valley. Others are natural places, small beaches, rocky ledges, or grassy clearings that you reach by following marked trails. On sunny days, the water appears deep blue, and the rock surfaces stand out sharply. On cloudy days, the fjords look more muted, and low clouds wrap around the mountaintops. Rain creates countless temporary waterfalls that run down the cliffs, increasing their number dramatically. Norway's national tourist routes are one of the country's most successful tourism projects. They were created to highlight landscapes that are both beautiful and accessible, and to combine them with high-quality road design, architecture, and viewpoints. Instead of building large attractions, Norway chose to upgrade existing roads that pass through its most striking regions. The result is a collection of routes where travelers can drive through mountains, fjords, and coastline while stopping at carefully planned platforms, rest areas, and viewpoints. There are 18 national tourist routes in total, but Western Norway hosts some of the most dramatic. The roads were selected not just for scenery, but for their ability to show how people live with steep terrain, unstable weather, and complex geography. Engineering, safety, and environmental impact were part of the planning process from the beginning. Many viewpoints were designed by Norwegian architects who focused on simple, durable materials: steel, concrete, stone, and glass, to blend with the environment without blocking the view. One of the most famous is Trollstigen, a road that climbs deep into a mountain valley through a series of hairpin turns. The route gains height quickly, and the landscape shifts from green farmland to bare rock as you climb. At the top, a modern viewpoint made of steel and concrete extends toward the edge of the cliff. The platform overlooks the entire valley, with waterfalls running down the mountainside and traffic moving slowly along the narrow road below. Visitors often feel the cold mist from the nearby waterfall carried by the wind. Sound behaves differently here. Car engines echo between the rock walls, creating a deep, rolling resonance that adds to the scale of the place. Another well-known route is the Atlantic Ocean Road, an 8-kilometer stretch built across small islands connected by bridges. The engineering challenge was significant. The road faces direct exposure to storms from the Norwegian Sea, and construction required solutions that could withstand heavy waves and strong winds. The result is a road that feels exposed to the open ocean, especially on days with rough weather. Cars move across curved bridges while waves crash against the rocks below. Pull-off areas let visitors stand near the water, hearing the constant sound of waves hitting the shoreline and feeling salt spray in the air. The Hardanger route offers a different experience. Instead of extreme engineering or dramatic cliffs, it focuses on orchards, waterfalls, and fjord views. The area is known for apples, cherries, and plums, and small farms line the fjord. Roads here curve gently along the water, passing through tunnels and over modern bridges. Viewpoints such as Steinsdalsfossen allow visitors to walk behind a waterfall, staying dry while watching the water fall close enough to feel the vibration underfoot. Hardanger showcases the softer side of Western Norway, still large in scale, but warmer in atmosphere. Each scenic route includes architectural elements designed to enhance the experience without dominating it. Rest areas have long wooden benches facing the fjord, shelters made of angled steel sheets, or glass platforms placed above drop-offs. Many of these structures are minimalist, allowing the surroundings to remain the focus. The combination of careful design and raw nature is one of the signatures of the National Tourist Routes Project. Traveling these routes is straightforward. Roads are usually open from late spring to autumn, although some high-altitude sections close in winter due to heavy snow. Driving times vary, but the intention is not speed. Viewpoints appear every few kilometers, encouraging slow travel. Visitors often step out of the car and immediately notice the shift in temperature, the smell of wet rock, and the sound of water running from nearby cliffs. Western Norway's scenic routes show the region at its best: large landscapes, made accessible through thoughtful engineering. They are not theme parks or staged attractions. They are real roads used by locals and travelers, offering some of the clearest and most immersive views of fjords, mountains, and coastline that Norway has to offer. The Lofoten Islands are one of those rare places where the landscape feels almost exaggerated, as if someone turned the contrast up too high. The peaks rise straight from the sea in sharp, dark triangles. The villages look impossibly small beneath them, and the light, especially in summer or during winter's blue hours, gives everything a crisp, high-definition look that travelers never forget. That's why Lofoten has become an icon. It's not just another pretty archipelago. It's geography that feels sculpted, inhabited, and constantly shifting with the weather. Lofoten's story begins with fishing. For more than 1,000 years, this was the heart of Norway's cod industry, the place where Arctic cod migrate each winter to spawn. That single natural event shaped everything: the economy, the architecture, even the smell you notice when you walk through villages. Long wooden racks filled with drying cod line the roads and harbors in February and March, a tradition called stockfish, which is still exported worldwide. The red fishermen's cabins you see, the rorbur, were once simple accommodation for seasonal workers. Today, many have been restored into cozy rentals with views that look like postcard covers no matter the weather. Most travelers move through 3 main villages, each with its own atmosphere. Rain is the most photographed, and it's obvious why as soon as you arrive. The water stays still on calm days, reflecting the surrounding peaks like a mirror, and the cluster of red and yellow houses creates a scene that feels almost too perfectly arranged. Early morning here is one of Lofoten's best views. Fishermen prepping boats, gulls circling. The smell of seawater mixing with fresh coffee from small harborside cafes. Henningsvær is very different, more artsy, more lived in. It stretches across several tiny islands connected by bridges, with a football field perched dramatically on a rock out in the sea. In summer, you'll find open galleries, design shops, and young Norwegians kayaking between the islands. It's the place where you feel the local community most clearly, not just tourism. At the end of the road sits the letter. It's one of Norway's shortest village names and marks the western edge of Lofoten. Here, the landscape feels wilder. Waves crash harder, cliffs stand taller, And the fishing museum explains how tough life used to be in this remote corner. Walking through the old drying racks and restored boathouses helps you understand that Lofoten wasn't always a travel dream. For centuries, it was a place of hard labor and long winters. For active travelers, the islands are a paradise. The hikes are short but steep, climbing quickly from sea level to ridgelines that reveal fjords, beaches, and scattered islands. Rhinebringen, one of the most popular trails, rewards you with a viewpoint that looks like it belongs on a movie poster. But even simpler walks, like the coastal paths near Unstad or the sandy stretches of Hawkland Beach, show how diverse the terrain can be. One moment you're surrounded by vertical granite, and the next you're standing on white sand, with turquoise water swirling in front of you. Staying in a Rorbu cabin is part of the experience. Wooden floors, simple furniture, and big windows facing the harbor give you the feeling of living inside a working coastal community. At night, you hear the creaking of boats, the wind shifting between gusts, and sometimes in winter, the northern lights flicker above the peaks. Red cabins pressed against dark cliffs. Cod hanging on wooden racks filling the air with a salty, unmistakable scent. Fishing boats move through calm water while clouds roll fast over the mountains. Lofoten doesn't need metaphors. The reality is striking enough. And when you stand on a pier, feeling the cold sea air, hearing the waves echo between the peaks, you understand why this remote archipelago has become one of Scandinavia's most photographed and deeply loved places. Tromsø is one of the world's easiest and most reliable gateways to the Northern Lights. And that alone brings thousands of travelers here every winter. But the city is more than its nighttime sky. It's a lively Arctic hub with cafes, students, museums, and some of Norway's most accessible winter landscapes. All packed onto a small island surrounded by mountains. That contrast between harsh nature and everyday city life is what sets Tromsø apart. The key fact every visitor should know is simple. Tromsø lies well above the Arctic Circle, at 69° N, which means long polar nights in winter and long days in summer. This position gives it one of the highest probabilities anywhere on Earth for seeing the aurora. You're inside the auroral oval itself, not chasing it from far away. If the sky is clear and the solar activity is reasonable, chances are good that green light will appear at some point during your stay. But geography alone isn't what makes Tromsø ideal. The Gulf Stream plays a major role. Unlike many Arctic regions at this latitude, the coastal climate stays relatively mild, keeping roads open and conditions manageable. You can fly into Tromsø, step off the plane, and immediately join organized aurora tours. No extreme expedition required. This combination of Arctic location and approachable climate is rare. Then comes the infrastructure. The city is built for winter tourism. Dozens of local operators run night tours in small groups, large buses, or self-drive formats. They know where to go depending on cloud cover, wind direction, and local microclimates. Information that matters far more than the forecast on your phone. Some tours stop at camps with heated tents and hot chocolate. Others take you deep inland where the sky is darker. Dog sledding and reindeer sled experiences sometimes double as aurora excursions, mixing traditional Arctic travel with sky watching. For visitors who prefer independence, car rentals and well-maintained coastal roads allow you to explore on your own. Yet Tromsø is not just a launch pad for tours. Spend a day in the city, and you'll see how culture and community shape life here. The Arctic Cathedral is one of the region's most recognizable buildings. A triangular structure with sharp white lines, often illuminated against the dark winter sky. It's modern, simple, and unmistakably Nordic. The interior is warm, with stained glass windows that glow during evening concerts. It's not a long visit, but it's one of those landmarks that immediately tells you where you are. The waterfront is another key feature. Tromsø has a compact center with small restaurants, bars, and old wooden houses mixed with newer buildings. In winter, people gather in bakeries for cinnamon rolls and coffee, shaking snow off their jackets before stepping inside. In summer, the streets fill with hikers and students taking ferries to nearby islands. Museums like Polaria and the Polar Museum help you understand the region's history. From Arctic wildlife to polar expeditions, Sami culture is present throughout northern Norway, and Tromsø is often the entry point to meet Sami families and herders. Day trips to nearby reindeer camps offer a look at traditional clothing, everyday herding practices, and the long connection between people and this landscape. These experiences are usually intimate and grounded in real family businesses, rather than staged performances. Boots crunch on fresh snow as you walk down side streets. Wooden houses glow under layers of frost. From the harbor, you can see mountains rising on every side, often covered in a soft blue winter light. When the aurora appears, it moves quietly, shifting shapes above the water, reflecting off fishing boats, stretching across the sky in green arcs. You stand still in the cold, watching the lights pulse and fade, and the entire city seems to pause with you. Tromsø works as both a practical destination, with easy flights, good infrastructure, reliable aurora, and an emotional one, where Arctic nature becomes part of every step you take. It's not remote wilderness, and not a big northern metropolis. It sits in between, offering a balance that lets travelers experience the north without giving up comfort. For many, this combination is what makes Tromsø unforgettable. The Sami are the indigenous people of northern Scandinavia, with communities spread across Norway, Sweden, Finland, and parts of Russia's Kola Peninsula. In Norway, they are especially present in the counties of Troms and Finnmark. Their culture is not a relic or a museum exhibit. It is a living tradition shaped by the Arctic environment, reindeer migration, and centuries of resilience. For many travelers, learning about the Sami is one of the most meaningful parts of a northern journey because it gives context to the land they're exploring. To understand Sami life, you start with the land itself. Northern Scandinavia has always been a place of long winters, shifting seasons, and wide-open landscapes. The Sami adapted to this environment through reindeer herding, fishing, and small-scale hunting. Reindeer aren't just animals in the distance. They are central to Sami identity. Families move their herds between winter and summer grazing areas, following migration routes that have existed for generations. These routes cross tundra, birch forests, frozen lakes, and mountain passes. Even today, many herders use a mix of traditional knowledge and modern tools like snowmobiles and GPS to navigate these immense landscapes. Another essential piece of Sami culture is joik, one of Europe's oldest continuous singing traditions. A joik isn't typically a song about something. It is meant to evoke the essence of a person, an animal, or a place. Some joiks sound soft and circular. Others are rhythmic or intense. They were never created for tourism or performance stages, but are now sometimes shared with visitors in cultural settings. To help explain how deeply tied Sami identity is to memory and nature. Sami craftsmanship is known as duoji. It blends practicality and artistry, using natural materials like leather, tanned reindeer hides, birch wood, pewter thread, and antler. You'll see items such as carved knives, traditional belts, wooden cups, and detailed embroidery. Each piece reflects both the maker's skills and the materials available in the Arctic environment. When travelers buy duoji, they're not buying generic souvenirs. They're supporting real artisans and the continuation of cultural traditions. For visitors, the best way to understand Sami culture is through small, family-run experiences. Around Tromsø, Karasjok, and Kautokeino, herding families open their camps to travelers. These aren't large theme park attractions. They are usually a handful of guests gathered around a fire inside a lavu, the traditional tent used by nomadic herders. The host prepares coffee and simple meals over the flames, tells stories about the land and the herd, and explains how reindeer are cared for throughout the year. You might visit a nearby enclosure, feed the animals, or learn how the migration cycle shapes everyday life. In winter, some families offer short reindeer-drawn sled rides, a calm and quiet way to move across the snow. The key to these experiences is scale and respect. Sami families choose to share parts of their lives, not all of it. Visitors get a glimpse, not a scripted show. Many travelers describe these moments as the most authentic part of their trip because the interaction feels personal and grounded in real daily routines. The Sami North offers scenes that stay with you long after you leave. Reindeer stand in soft snow, their breath rising in the cold air. Birch trees bend under frost. A wooden lavu glows orange from a fire inside, while the wind moves across the open plateau outside. When you enter the tent, the air smells of wood smoke and reindeer hide. Sparks jump upward with every movement of the fire. You warm your hands while the host pours coffee into wooden cups. And outside, the herd shifts and snorts quietly in the cold. Traveling through Sami regions isn't just about seeing the Arctic. It's about understanding how people live in it. How traditions, land, and community remain connected despite modern pressures. For many visitors, this part of Scandinavia becomes the emotional anchor of their journey. A reminder that the North is not empty, but filled with culture that has endured through centuries of snow, silence, and migration. Svalbard is one of the most unusual places you can visit on the planet, not just in Scandinavia, but anywhere. It sits halfway between mainland Norway and the North Pole. A cluster of islands governed by an international treaty that allows citizens of more than 40 countries to live and work here without a visa. This treaty, signed in 1920, makes Svalbard politically Norwegian but internationally open, giving the archipelago a unique identity where researchers, miners, guides, and adventurers share one of the coldest inhabited environments in the world. Despite this openness, Svalbard is remote in a way that feels immediate the moment you land. The main settlement, Longyearbyen, has fewer than 3,000 residents and sits surrounded by steep mountains and wide valleys covered in snow for much of the year. Here, nature isn't just outside the town, it presses right up to it. Polar bears roam the region, and because of this, leaving the settlement without a guide or a rifle is illegal. Signs at the town's edge mark the boundary, and visitors quickly understand that this rule isn't symbolic. It's survival. Life in Longyearbyen is practical and surprisingly welcoming. Colorful wooden houses stand against the white landscape. People walk between the school, supermarket, and bars wearing thick boots and balaclavas. There's a sense of community that comes from living in a place where everyone depends on each other during the long polar night, when the sun doesn't rise for weeks. Cafes fill with researchers discussing fieldwork, guides prepping equipment, and travelers layering up before heading onto the ice. The town's museum and small gallery explain the archipelago's history, from trapping and mining to modern scientific research. Svalbard's natural world is the main reason travelers come, but it demands respect. Polar bears, Arctic foxes, walruses, seals, and migratory birds rely on these fragile ecosystems. Wildlife sightings are controlled and ethically supervised by local guides trained in safety and conservation. This is not a place for chasing animals. It's a place for learning how they survive in extreme conditions. That difference shapes every tour, from boat trips into fjords to winter expeditions deep into the valleys. The glaciers are the heart of Svalbard's landscape. They carve through mountains, push towards the sea, and break into enormous blue walls of ice. On boat excursions, travelers often hear the deep cracks and booms of calving fronts, the sound of ice thousands of years old shifting with the tides. The ice here isn't pure white. It comes in layers of steel blue, gray, and translucent turquoise shaped by snow compression and trapped air. You can stand in absolute silence, only to hear the sharp snap of distant ice echoing across the fjord. Climate research is a major part of life in Svalbard. Scientists study melting glaciers, permafrost, ocean temperatures, and Arctic wildlife. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault, located inside a mountain above Longyearbyen, symbolizes global cooperation. It holds duplicate seeds from gene banks worldwide, serving as a backup for the planet's agricultural diversity. Travelers can't enter it. But just seeing the entrance, a geometric light installation set into the hillside, emphasizes how serious the world is about preserving life in a changing climate. Outdoor activities depend on the season. In winter, snowmobiles move across empty valleys in long convoys, their headlights bouncing off the snow while the rest of the world feels impossibly still. Dog sledding tours run through frozen riverbeds, surrounded by mountains that remain completely untouched. In summer, boats travel through ice-filled waters where seals rest on floes, and cliffs become nesting grounds for thousands of seabirds. Svalbard feels like the end of the human map, a place where nature dominates every decision, every movement, every breath. For travelers, that's exactly what makes it extraordinary. Stockholm is one of Europe's most distinctive capitals. Built across 14 islands connected by bridges, ferries, and waterfront promenades. The city feels open and breathable thanks to the constant presence of water. And travelers immediately notice how clean, walkable, and organized everything is. Even in winter, when parts of the sea freeze into thin white sheets, Stockholm remains easy to navigate. Boats, trams, and the metro all work seamlessly. In summer, when daylight stretches deep into the evening, the ferries move non-stop between islands packed with residents heading to parks, picnics, and swimming spots. The best place to start is Gamla Stan, the Old Town. It's one of Europe's best preserved medieval centers. A compact island of narrow alleys, sloping cobblestones, and yellow and orange facades that glow in late afternoon light. This is where Stockholm began in the 13th century, and the royal palace still dominates the northern edge of the island. Walking here is simple. No complicated routes, just wandering through small squares filled with cafes and bakeries. In winter, Christmas markets set up in the main plaza. In summer, street musicians fill the air with violin and accordion melodies. It's touristy, but for good reason. Gamla Stan shows you the oldest layer of the city without trying to over-dramatize it. Across the water lies one of Stockholm's most famous attractions, the Vasa Museum on Djurgården Island. The Vasa warship sank on its maiden voyage in 1628 and spent more than 300 years underwater before being raised almost fully intact. Seeing the ship up close is striking. The dark wooden hull towers above you, carved with hundreds of details, and the museum explains Sweden's age of naval power with direct, clear storytelling. You don't need to be a history expert to appreciate it. The museum is structured for all ages and remains one of Scandinavia's top cultural sites. Djurgården itself deserves time beyond the museum. It's a green island filled with parkland, trails, and cultural attractions like Skansen, the open-air folk museum. Locals come here to run, cycle, or sit by the water. Ferries from the city center arrive every few minutes, and the trip provides a small but beautiful look at how Stockholm's islands connect like a chain. For a more modern feel, head to Södermalm, often described as Stockholm's creative district. Here the streets widen, the buildings feel younger, and cafes spill out onto the sidewalks in warmer months. Vintage shops, design boutiques, record stores, and small galleries give the area a lived-in local rhythm. It's where you see Stockholm's design identity most clearly. Minimalist interiors, clean lines, muted colors, and a balance between function and style. Even coffee shops have that unmistakable Scandinavian look. Pale wood tables, soft lighting, and shelves lined with ceramics. This ties neatly into an essential Swedish ritual, fika. More than just a coffee break, fika is a daily pause to sit, talk, and slow down. Every neighborhood has bakeries serving cinnamon buns, cardamom buns, and pastries topped with vanilla custard or almond paste. Travelers quickly get used to this rhythm: walk, ferry, museum, fika, repeat. It's a simple but essential part of the city's culture. Stockholm is easy to picture because the details stand out. In winter, parts of the harbor freeze, and ferries push through cold, silent water. People walk along the quays wearing thick scarves while warm light glows from restaurant windows. In summer, the colors brighten. Boats crisscross between islands, outdoor terraces fill up, and children jump from wooden docks straight into the Baltic Sea. The yellow facades of Gamla stan look even warmer under the long northern sun. And the city becomes one big outdoor living room. Stockholm works well for travelers because it combines three things: historical depth, modern design, and everyday livability. You can explore palaces and medieval streets in the morning, visit a world-class museum in the afternoon, and have dinner by the water as ferries pass every few minutes. The islands connect everything without ever making the city feel overwhelming. For anyone exploring Scandinavia, Stockholm provides the perfect balance. A capital that feels open, human-scaled, and easy to enjoy. Whether you come for history, culture, or simply to watch boats move through the blue channels that shape the city's identity. If Stockholm feels like a city made of islands, the archipelago is the place where that idea explodes into something colossal. A maze of nearly 30,000 islands, islets, and skerries stretching deep into the Baltic Sea. Just minutes from the Swedish capital. This watery world feels like an entire country of its own. Quiet harbors, granite shorelines warmed by summer sun, narrow forest paths, small wooden homes tucked between birch trees, and boats gliding along channels that look like painted strokes of blue. What makes it truly extraordinary is not just its size, though that number alone makes your mind pause, but its accessibility. The archipelago is meant to be lived in and experienced. Ferries, water taxis, and private boats move constantly, connecting locals and visitors to island life as naturally as buses do in a city. This deep connection between Stockholmers and the sea is part of the region's identity. Summers are spent outdoors, on docks, in boats, or on warm rock slabs that act like natural sun loungers. Winters are quieter, but no less atmospheric, with frozen inlets and pale light reflecting off snow-dusted pines. Vaxholm is the gateway, the town where many people meet first. Its pastel wooden buildings, relaxed marina, and 16th century fortress sitting on its own tiny island feel like a postcard introduction to archipelago culture. Cafes serve warm cinnamon buns, sailboats rock gently in the harbor, and the water feels close from every angle. It's lively but not overwhelming, the perfect balance of local life and easy visitor comfort. Farther out lies Sandom, legendary among sailors and summer lovers. Regattas fill the waters in July, yachts line the docks, and sandy beaches curve along the edges of the island. Yet step away from the village center and you find pine forests, quiet trails, old fishermen's houses, and a slower rhythm. Sandom represents what many Swedes love. A place to celebrate the season, then slip into peaceful nature the moment you walk 5 minutes in any direction. For those who prefer something even more tranquil, hundreds of islands offer that sense of complete escape. You can kayak along sheltered routes, camp on outer island cliffs, or take ferries to car-free communities where bicycles and walking paths are the main roads. This variety, bustling, relaxed, or almost untouched, is what makes the archipelago feel like a world of its own moods. Local life is shaped by water. Homes are built in painted wood, red, yellow, or the soft whites and blues typical of coastal Scandinavia. Many stand just meters from the shoreline, with private docks, rowing boats, and terraces overlooking narrow channels. People move between islands to visit friends, go swimming, buy fresh fish, or enjoy fika with a sea view. And everywhere you go, there is that unmistakable Baltic smell: clean water, sun-warmed rock, pine resin, and the hint of salt carried on the breeze. Clear water tappings rhythmically against smooth granite boulders. Red cottages leaning toward the sea, as if they've lived through generations of storms. Ferries carve soft white lines as they slide between islands. Kayaks gliding at eye level with water so transparent you can see shadows on the sand below. Evening light stretches long and gold across the archipelago, turning windows warm and boats into silhouettes. Gothenburg is the kind of city that sneaks up on travelers. It isn't as world-famous as Stockholm or as storybook as southern Sweden's medieval towns. Yet almost everyone who arrives leaves wondering why they didn't come sooner. Built by Dutch engineers, shaped by shipyards and maritime trade, and renewed by students, artists, and some of the best chefs in Scandinavia, Gothenburg is a port city with both grit and charm, and a warmth that surprises visitors again and again. What makes Gothenburg especially memorable is the mix: a world-class food scene, leafy canals, a coastline made for slow exploration, and a culture that feels relaxed, friendly, and instantly livable. It's a big city wrapped in small city ease. You feel it the moment you cross a bridge, hear a tram hum past, or smell the sea drifting in from the harbor. Start in the center, where canals designed in the 1600s still give the city a soft, watery rhythm. Walking paths follow the old moat, lined with willows and stone walls, and small bridges lead to districts full of cafes, record shops, and boutiques. This is a place where you wander rather than rush, where even the busiest downtown streets feel human and navigable. One of Gothenburg's biggest surprises is its reputation as the food capital of Sweden. The nearby cold waters of the North Sea produce some of Europe's best seafood, and the city has turned that advantage into an art form. Michelin star restaurants like Shomagassine and inventive casual spots in old warehouses highlight the region's ingredients: shrimp, oysters, mussels, cold smoked fish, and delicate coastal flavors. The Feska Korka, Gothenburg's iconic fish market, shaped like a wooden church, remains a local institution. Vendors cleaning the day's catch, steam rising from freshly cooked shellfish, and the sound of seagulls circling above, hoping for scraps. The neighborhoods add their own personality. Haga, one of the city's oldest quarters, is a cobblestone district filled with wooden houses, vintage shops, and cafes famous for kanelbuller so large you need two hands to hold one. It has the cozy, lived-in atmosphere that makes visitors feel immediately part of local life. For a different kind of excitement, Liseberg stands out, one of the best amusement parks in Europe. Loved equally by families, teenagers, and locals who come for concerts, seasonal lights, and that uniquely Scandinavian blend of thrill and design. Even people who don't usually care for amusement parks end up charmed by its atmosphere. Gothenburg also celebrates its industrial side. At the Volvo Museum, travelers get a look at Sweden's most famous automotive brand, from vintage models to futuristic prototypes. All displayed on the same waterfront, where the company helped shape Gothenburg's working identity. It's a reminder that this city grew from innovation and exports, not just tourism. And then there's the coastline. Few cities in the world have such easy access to an archipelago, and Gothenburg's is uniquely rugged, granite-filled, and peaceful. In 30 minutes, a small ferry can take you to islands like Vrango, Styrso, and Donso, where villages sit close to the water, and trails lead across windswept rocks. Swimming platforms dip into the sea. Fishing boats come and go, and the pace of life drops instantly. It's coastal Sweden, distilled, simple, open, and deeply connected to nature. The visuals of Gothenburg linger long after you leave. Seagulls wheeling over the harbor, trams rattling down rain-glossed streets, steam lifting from seafood stalls on cool afternoons, and sunlight reflecting off cranes and ferry decks. It's a city built on water and work, but one that has learned how to relax without losing its soul. Gothenburg may be underrated, but that's part of its charm. It rewards curiosity, surprises you with quality, and invites you into a lifestyle that's easy, welcoming, and quietly exceptional. A port city with a soft heart and a strong sense of place. Swedish Lapland is where the map feels almost secondary, where distance is measured in valleys, rivers, and reindeer trails rather than roads, and where the seasons are so extreme they shape every rhythm of life. This is the far north of Sweden, a region of Arctic light and deep winter darkness, where silence is not an absence, but a presence you feel in the air, the snow, and the endless sky. Travelers come here for the northern lights, the wilderness, and the sense of stepping into a landscape that still follows the pace of nature. But they leave with something more, a memory of stillness that stays long after returning home. In summer, Swedish Lapland becomes a world without night. The midnight sun hovers above the horizon for weeks, bathing everything in a warm golden glow. Rivers flash with light at midnight, mountains curve in soft pastel colors, and the forests stay bright enough to hike at any hour. Locals fish, kayak, bike, and simply sit outside long after what should be dusk, enjoying the surreal freedom of a day that never ends. In winter, the region enters the opposite reality. Long, dark months where daylight lasts only a few hours, and twilight shades the sky in pink, blue, and violet. Snow transforms everything. Roads become quiet white lines. Trees wear thick coats of ice. Lakes freeze into hard, glassy plains. And in that darkness, the aurora borealis becomes brighter than anywhere else in Sweden. Abisko, in particular, is famous for having one of the clearest skies in the Arctic Circle. Its blue hole, a patch of unusually stable weather, gives travelers a rare chance to see green lights ripple non-stop across the night. One of the region's most iconic experiences sits in the small village of Jukkasjärvi, the Ice Hotel. Built anew every winter from blocks of ice from the nearby Torn River, it's part architecture, part sculpture, part ephemeral art. Walking through its halls is like entering a frozen cathedral. Ice chandeliers, ice beds, ice carvings lit by soft blue light. Every room is unique, created by international artists who design suites that melt back into the river each spring. Staying the night is both surreal and strangely peaceful. Heavy reindeer skins, silence so complete you hear your own breath, and a slow drift into sleep inside an artwork that will not exist next year. Adventure here means stepping fully into the Arctic. Dog sledding is one of the most unforgettable ways to move through the landscape. The moment the sled begins to glide, the barking stops and the world goes silent, except for the soft crunch of runners over snow and the steady breathing of the dogs. Snowmobiling takes you across huge frozen valleys, through birch forests, and over plateaus where nothing interrupts the horizon. Summer brings its own epic journeys, especially along the legendary Kungsleden. This long-distance hiking route winds through some of Europe's most untouched wilderness. Alpine lakes, glacial streams, broad valleys, and gentle Arctic tundra dotted with tiny flowers. Hikers stay in simple mountain huts run by the Swedish Tourist Association, sharing meals and stories under skies that never fully darken. Nature here is paired with culture, especially the traditions of the Sami, the indigenous people of northern Scandinavia. Their knowledge of reindeer migration, their handicrafts, their joak singing, and their deep relationship with the land shape Lapland's character. Visitors often encounter Sami culture through guided tours, hand-woven goods, or meals cooked over an open fire in a wooden kata tent. Copenhagen is the city people point to when they talk about how urban life could work. It's clean, bike-friendly, easy to navigate, and designed around quality of life in a way that feels both effortless and intentional. Travelers come here for the colors of Nyhavn, the canals of Christianshavn, the food scene that put Nordic cuisine on the map, and the sense that the whole city moves at a calm, steady rhythm. But what makes Copenhagen truly stand out is how well it blends aesthetics with everyday practicality. Design isn't decoration here. It's a lifestyle. The moment you step into the city center, you notice the bikes. There are more bicycles than cars, and locals commute in every season, even during wind or light snow. Major streets have wide, raised bike lanes, and rush hour is a steady, almost silent flow of cyclists heading to work or school. One of the best places to feel this rhythm is Dronning Louise's Bro, a bridge that connects the lakes to the Norrebro district. In the morning, hundreds of bikes cross at once, a smooth wave of movement that defines Copenhagen life. For visitors, renting a bike isn't optional. It's the easiest and most authentic way to explore. Copenhagen is also famous for its flavor of urban calm. The harbor is clean enough for swimming, and on warm days people sit along the edges of the water, dipping their feet in or jumping from wooden platforms. Islands Brygge and the Nordhavn Harbor Baths are popular spots where city architecture and outdoor life merge. The historic heart of the city is Nyhavn, with its row of brightly painted houses facing the canal. Originally a bustling port where writers, sailors, and traders resided, Hans Christian Andersen spent years here. Today, it's lined with restaurants and boats. The best time to visit is early morning, when the water is still, and the facades reflect on the surface like a postcard in real life. Across the water, Christianshavn offers a different mood. Narrow canals, houseboats, cobbled streets, and modern waterfront buildings. This neighborhood was inspired by Dutch design, and you feel that influence in the geometry of its canals and the mix of old warehouses and new wooden architecture. From here, many travelers visit Christiania, the well-known free town. Approached with a factual and respectful lens, it's a self-governed community that originated in the 1970s on an abandoned military base. Today, it's a mix of alternative lifestyles, workshops, concerts, art studios, and hand-built houses. Most of the area is quiet and open to visitors, though certain zones have photography rules. For classic entertainment, Copenhagen's Tivoli Gardens remains one of the most beloved attractions. Opened in 1843, it's one of the world's oldest amusement parks, but it balances nostalgia with modern design. Lanterns in the trees, wooden roller coasters, lakes, gardens, and concerts in summer. It's central, easy to visit, and surprisingly atmospheric at night when the lights reflect on the water. Copenhagen is equally known for its food culture, from Michelin-starred restaurants to cozy bakeries serving cardamom buns. The city helped launch new Nordic cuisine, which focuses on local ingredients, seasonality, and clean flavors. For something casual, the Refn street food market gathers dozens of international stalls along the waterfront, with benches facing the harbor and a relaxed open-air vibe. Design shapes everything here. Not just buildings, but everyday objects, public benches, playgrounds, bicycle bridges, and even bus stops. The city's architecture ranges from colorful 18th century townhouses to modern icons like the Black Diamond Library or the wave-shaped Cykelslängen Bridge. It's a place where form and function sit comfortably together, making the city feel intuitive to use. Most travelers picture Copenhagen as colorful Nyhavn and bicycles near the city center. But the greater Copenhagen area is where you see the city's modern identity, the places that show how Denmark blends architecture, nature, and everyday life into something unusually coherent. From contemporary neighborhoods to long beaches and world-class museums, this wider region feels like an extension of the city's design philosophy, simple, functional, and deeply connected to the landscape. Exploring it gives travelers a fuller sense of how Copenhagen actually lives, not just how it photographs. One of the most defining spots is Amager Strandpark, a long man-made beach just minutes from central Copenhagen. It's where Copenhageners swim, jog, paddleboard, or simply sit with a coffee facing the Orson Strait. The beach is split into two main areas, a broad lagoon side with calm, shallow water, and an outer section exposed to the full wind of the strait. Wooden boardwalks run along the sand, children play on the dunes, and in winter the place has an almost cinematic stillness. Cold air cutting across the water, waves slapping lightly against the rocks, and people walking with scarves wrapped tightly around their faces. On clear days, you can see Sweden across the water, and the view reminds you how connected this region is. Locals come here year-round. In summer, the minimalist white bathing platforms fill with swimmers. In colder months, wetsuit-clad windsurfers carve quick arcs through the gray-blue waves. It's one of the clearest examples of Copenhagen's outdoor culture. Nature isn't something you escape to, it's woven right into the urban fabric. Just south of the beach sits Orestad, one of Copenhagen's most ambitious modern districts. Built on former empty land near the airport, it feels like an open-air design showcase. The buildings here are famous among architecture students worldwide. The 8 House by Bjarke Ingels Group, where apartments are connected by long sloping walkways. The VM Mountain Housing Complex, blending terraces with sharp geometric lines, and black glass office buildings that mirror the sky. Walking through Orestad is a very different experience compared to the historic center. The streets are wide, the architecture bold, and the metro glides above ground on elevated tracks. Yet the area still follows Denmark's core philosophy: access to light, views, and green spaces. Canals cut between buildings, reeds grow along the water, and the vast Amagerfjeld Nature Reserve borders the neighborhood. One moment you're among futuristic apartments. 5 minutes later, you're standing in a quiet grassland with birds calling across open fields. For many travelers, the highlight of Greater Copenhagen sits outside the city altogether. The Louisiana Museum of Modern Art, located in Humlebæk, about 40 minutes north by train. It's one of Scandinavia's most celebrated museums. Not only for its exhibitions, but for how it interacts with nature. The museum is built low, with clean white corridors and floor-to-ceiling windows that open views toward the Øresund. Sculptures stand on the lawn, waves hit the rocky shoreline below, and the coastline curves softly towards Sweden in the distance. Inside, the design is simple and warm: wood floors, natural light, and quiet spaces that make you slow down. The building connects through underground passages, open courtyards, and glass walkways, so visiting feels like moving through a meditative path rather than a crowded gallery. Travelers often mention that even people who don't usually visit museums enjoy Louisiana, because the surroundings are such an essential part of the experience. What ties these places together, the beach, the modern district, the museum, is Copenhagen's long-term focus on livability. Greater Copenhagen isn't built for show. It's built for comfort, ease, and everyday beauty. The architecture doesn't fight the environment. Instead, it opens to the sea, the wind, and the long Scandinavian light. Aarhus is Denmark's second-largest city, but it doesn't feel like a smaller version of Copenhagen. It has its own personality, younger, sharper, and driven by the energy of tens of thousands of students who keep the streets lively until late. Travelers come here for its museums, architecture, and easy access to forests and beaches. But what makes Aarhus memorable is its balance: modern culture mixed with small city calm. history placed right beside experimental art, and green spaces woven naturally into daily life. It's a compact city, easy to explore on foot or by bike, and full of places where locals gather, waterfront terraces, narrow lanes in the Latin Quarter, and quiet spots under tall beech trees near the sea. The city's most recognizable landmark is the Aarhus Art Museum, one of the largest museums in Scandinavia. Even from a distance, you spot the circular glass walkway that sits on the roof, Olafur Eliasson's Your Rainbow Panorama. Entering it is like stepping into a slow-moving ring of color. The city spreads out beneath you, red brick buildings, church towers, construction cranes, and the harbor all tinted in red, orange, blue, or green as you walk. Below, Aarhus's galleries cover everything from classic Nordic art to bold contemporary exhibitions. The building itself is designed for wandering, with broad white staircases and calm open spaces that let each artwork breathe. To understand Aarhus's past, travelers head to Den Gamle By, an open-air museum where historic buildings from across Denmark have been rebuilt and preserved. Instead of glass cases, the museum recreates whole streets, carpenters working in wooden workshops, grocery stores from the 1920s with signs written in old fonts, and apartments furnished exactly as families lived decades ago. It's not staged in a theatrical way. It's careful, detailed, and gives visitors the feeling of walking through a living timeline. The museum even includes neighborhoods from the 1970s and 2010s, showing how Danish life has changed, not just centuries ago, but in recent memory. Aarhus is also known for its waterfront transformation. What used to be industrial ground has become a modern district filled with apartments, cafes, public spaces, and long boardwalks. The Dock 1 Library and Cultural Center sits at the edge of the harbor with huge windows facing the water. Locals come here to work, read, or simply sit with a view of the ships. The harbor baths offer designated swimming spots in summer. And you often see people sunbathing on the wooden decks or jumping into the cool water on warm days. Just south of the city, Marselisborg Forest stretches along the coastline. This long band of beech forest is where Aarhus breathes. Locals run on the forest trails, cycle through the trees, or follow the paths that lead directly to sandy beaches. The land slopes gently toward the sea, and on quiet afternoons you can hear the waves between the trees. Close by is the Marselisborg Palace, the summer residence of the Danish royal family, with gardens open to the public when the royals are away. Aarhus's cultural life is shaped by its students. With a major university and several artistic schools, the city has a constant flow of young people. Cafes spill onto the sidewalks, music events pop up in former warehouses, and the Latin Quarter fills with people browsing small boutiques or sitting outside with coffee even on cold days. This youthful energy combines with Denmark's typical calmness, giving the city a relaxed but creative pulse. Food is another highlight. Aarhus has developed a strong culinary reputation, with Nordic-style restaurants focused on seasonal ingredients and simple flavors. The Aarhus Street Food Market near the bus station gathers dozens of vendors inside a former garage, offering everything from Danish comfort dishes to global street cuisine. It's loud, warm, and always busy. The opposite of minimalist design, but full of local life. Denmark is often imagined as a country of cities and farmland, but to understand the nation fully, you need to step onto its islands. These islands are where Danish traditions, landscapes, and rhythms become clearer, slower days, strong local identities, and a relationship with the sea that has shaped the country for centuries. Bornholm, Aro, Fano, Langeland, and dozens of smaller islands each offer something distinct, but they all share the same calm atmosphere: quiet harbors, open fields, and coastal roads perfect for cycling. Travelers who explore them often say they finally understood the everyday Denmark that doesn't always appear in big city visits. The most famous of these islands is Bornholm, set far out in the Baltic Sea, closer to Sweden and Poland than to Copenhagen. Its distance alone gives it a special feeling, a self-contained world shaped by wind, granite, and fishing culture. Bornholm is known for its round churches, unique medieval structures built with thick white walls and circular designs. They likely served both religious and defensive purposes, and their stark interior spaces feel different from typical Scandinavian churches. Along the coast, Bornholm shifts from steep cliffs in the north to sandy beaches in the south. Towns like Gudjem and Svaneke have harbors where wooden boats knock gently against each other, and smokehouses release the unmistakable smell of Bornholm smoked herring. Eating sole over Gudjem, smoked herring served with rye bread, onion, radish, and a raw egg yolk, is almost a ritual for travelers. The island's food scene blends traditional Baltic flavors with new Nordic influences, making it one of Denmark's most interesting culinary destinations. Cycling is one of the best ways to explore Bornholm. Well-marked trails cut through forests, along the sea, and between small villages where houses are painted in warm yellows, reds, and browns. On clear days, the Baltic Sea has a brightness that surprises people, a cool blue-green color that contrasts with the dark rock formations. Locals call it the Bornholm Light, a clarity that artists have tried to capture for centuries. Further south, the island of Aro feels like something from a storybook. Its small towns are lined with colorful 18th century houses, each with crooked doors, handmade signs, and roses climbing around the windows. Cobblestone streets lead to small squares, and the harbor is filled with old wooden sailboats kept lovingly restored by local enthusiasts. Aro has long been a favorite cycling destination because the landscape is gentle. Rolling hills, small farms, beaches framed by wildflowers, and long empty roads where the only sound is the wind rushing past. In spring and early summer, the fields around Aro and Langeland turn yellow with canola flowers, and cyclists move along narrow country roads between bright fields and deep blue water. It's one of the most iconic Danish island visuals, simple, quiet, and deeply tied to the agricultural life that still defines this part of the country. What makes Denmark's islands essential to understanding the nation is the combination of openness and intimacy. Life here moves at a different pace, shaped by the ferry schedules, the shifting seasons, and the predictable rhythm of the sea. People gather at harbor cafes, bakeries sell pastries at a slower pace, and conversations with locals often drift toward weather, fishing, and family, the things that actually matter in small communities. For travelers, visiting the islands isn't just about scenery. It's about experiencing the foundation of Danish culture. Modest houses painted in soft colors, villages that value craftsmanship, and landscapes that are never loud but always present. Southern Sweden's Baltic coast feels like a place built for gentle living. Its wide horizons, long beaches, medieval towns, and farms that smell of rye bread and sea salt. Travelers often talk about Sweden's forests and lakes, but Skåne, the country's southernmost region, is where landscape, food culture, and history come together in a quiet, understated way. Here, the light is soft, the wind is slow, and life moves at a pace that feels deliberately unhurried. Skåne is the heart of this coastline. For centuries, it shifted between Danish and Swedish rule. And that mixed heritage shaped everything: the architecture, the dialect, the cuisine. Driving through the region, you move between half-timbered houses, windswept beaches, and rolling farmland dotted with yellow canola fields. There's a sense of openness here that feels different from the dense forests of central Sweden. You see the sky everywhere. Start in Ystad, a small medieval town with cobbled lanes and pastel-colored buildings. It's famous for the Wallander detective stories, but even without its literary fame, Ystad has a naturally cinematic quality. Walk the old streets early in the morning, and you hear mostly the rhythm of footsteps, shops opening, bikes passing, and seagulls drifting overhead. The South Beach promenade stretches out in a broad curve of pale sand, with the Baltic Sea lapping gently at the shore. Nothing dramatic, just beautifully calm. Further west, Malmö gives the region an entirely different energy. Once an industrial port city, it reinvented itself through bold architecture and international influences. The turning torso, twisting 190 meters over the waterfront, is the obvious landmark, a sculpture you can live inside. Below it, Västra Hamnen is a sustainable district built around boardwalks, clean swimming spots, and cafes that fill up on sunny days. Malmö's cultural mix shows up in its food scene too. Falafel stands, Nordic bakeries, and experimental kitchens that use local produce in new ways. Skåne's food culture is one of the best reasons to travel the Baltic coast. This is farm country, and the ingredients tell that story. Asparagus in spring, strawberries in summer, slow fermented rye, smoked fish, cheeses, and ciders. Many countryside farms open their doors to visitors, selling fresh bread, jars of jam, and handmade butter. It's not marketed as an experience, it's just how people live. Keep moving along the coast, and the scenery opens into long stretches of wild beaches, dunes, and heathland. Places like Sandhammaren and Falsterbo look almost tropical when the sun hits shallow Baltic water, bright, clear, slightly shimmering. The beaches here are some of the longest in Sweden, but even in summer, you can find quiet corners. This coastline doesn't rush you, it gives you room to breathe. For history lovers, the region's Danish-Swedish past is everywhere. Medieval castles, fishing villages, half-timbered farms, and stone churches sit along small roads that wind between fields. Towns like Simrishamn and Kivik offer that mix of heritage and seaside charm. Old harbors, apple orchards, galleries, cafes, and views that stretch towards Bornholm on clear days. And then there's the countryside, open, green, orderly. If Sweden has a calm southern soul, this is where you feel it. Cyclists glide past windmills. Horses graze near stone walls. Farmhouses glow in late afternoon sunlight. Everything moves with a softness that feels almost intentional. Scandinavian food culture is built on a simple idea: let nature lead. Harsh winters, short summers, and a deep respect for the land have shaped a cuisine that prizes freshness, purity, and seasonality. Whether you're eating in a small coastal town or a world-famous restaurant, the core principles remain the same. Clean flavors, local ingredients, and methods that honor tradition while constantly reinventing it. Across Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Iceland, you see the same foundational philosophy: simplicity over complexity. Ingredients aren't hidden behind heavy sauces or long lists of spices. Instead, the focus is on what comes from nearby. Fish caught that morning, vegetables pulled from the soil, herbs gathered from the forest. Even the word Nordic suggests a kind of clarity. Cool light, open spaces, and food that mirrors the landscape. Foraging is at the heart of this tradition. In the north, people have collected berries, mushrooms, herbs, and wild plants for centuries. Blueberries, lingonberries, chanterelles, spruce shoots, and wild sorrel often end up on plates in both homes and fine dining kitchens. Foraging isn't a trend here. It's cultural continuity. The forest is both pantry and teacher, reminding travelers how closely Nordic life is tied to nature. Seafood is another pillar. Surrounded by cold, clean waters, Scandinavia produces some of the world's best salmon, cod, herring, mackerel, and shellfish. Smoked salmon over wood, pickled herring served with onions and dill, cod cooked in butter, shrimp piled onto open-faced sandwiches. These dishes appear everywhere, from harborside cafes to elegant restaurants. Cold-water fish have firm textures and pure flavors that pair naturally with the region's preference for light seasoning. Traditional dishes tell stories of preservation and survival. Long winters meant people smoked, salted, dried, and fermented food out of necessity. Today, those same techniques are celebrated for their flavor and craft. Think rye bread baked dense and dark, crisp rye crackers that last through the season, cured gravlax scented with dill, or Swedish surströmming, the end of fermentation. Even something as simple as butter is often cultured, giving it a tang that feels unmistakably Nordic. But Scandinavian cuisine isn't stuck in the past. The modern New Nordic movement, which began in the 2000s, pushed chefs to elevate local ingredients with global creativity while staying tied to nature. Restaurants in Copenhagen, Stockholm, and Oslo now rank among the world's most influential. Using fermentation labs, experimental foraging, and precise techniques to create dishes that feel both ancient and futuristic. Birch oil, seaweed broth, smoked mussels, and pickled pine cones are no longer unusual. They're expressions of place. For travelers, food culture in Scandinavia is best experienced through everyday rituals. Start with a bakery. Across the region, bakeries mix tradition with craftsmanship. Laminated pastries, warm cinnamon buns, cardamom rolls, sourdough loaves with blistered crusts. These spaces smell like butter and spice in early morning calm. Then there are the food halls, Torvehalleren in Copenhagen, Ostermalms Saluhall in Stockholm, and Mathallen in Oslo. These aren't chaotic markets, but curated spaces where fishmongers, butchers, and small producers present seasonal goods with meticulous care. It's where you taste cured salmon beside a cheese counter, buy fresh greens, and end with a slice of berry tart. Along the coast, fish markets capture the Nordic relationship with the sea. Stavanger's harbor, Bergen's long-standing tradition, Helsinki's Kauppatouri. Each one places fresh catch at the center of daily life. You see salmon filleted in front of customers, shrimp boiled on the spot, and whole cod displayed on ice under a roof of mist and salt air. What ties all of this together is a visual language as clean as the food. Fresh dill scattered over new potatoes. Crisp rye crackers stacked neatly, salmon smoking slowly over wood. It's a cuisine that feels honest, not flashy, not loud, but deeply connected to nature. Scandinavian food culture invites travelers to slow down, taste the seasons, and appreciate the beauty and simplicity. Here, eating isn't just nourishment. It's a way of understanding the land itself. Scandinavian design is often described as minimalist, functional, and beautiful. But at its core, it's something deeper. It's a way of living shaped by climate, light, landscape, and the desire to create harmony between people and their environment. When you walk through a Nordic city, from Helsinki to Copenhagen, the design language isn't just seen, it's felt in the warmth of materials, the clarity of forms, and the quiet logic behind everyday objects. Scandinavia's climate plays a major role. Long winters, limited daylight, and months spent indoors encourage people to build spaces that felt bright, warm, and human. That's why Nordic interiors favor big windows, pale walls, natural light, and warm wood tones. Homes are designed to be both practical and comforting. A chair isn't just a chair, it's something you live with for decades, so it must be functional, durable, and pleasant to touch. These values shaped the region's design identity long before it became globally popular. Materials matter here. Wood, leather, wool, glass, and stone appear everywhere because they respond well to the climate and age beautifully. The idea is to let materials speak for themselves. No unnecessary ornamentation, no clutter. Clean lines, honest textures, and thoughtful proportions are woven into everything from kitchen utensils to major public buildings. The rise of Scandinavian design in the 20th century is closely tied to pioneers like Alvar Aalto, the Finnish architect whose work blended organic forms with modernist ideals. His bentwood furniture, curved glassware, and human-centered architecture helped redefine modern design worldwide. Aalto believed that design should improve everyday life, not overwhelm it. And his influence still shapes how the region thinks about comfort and simplicity. Another giant is Jørn Utzon, the Danish architect best known for designing the Sydney Opera House. His work, rooted in sculptural forms and careful attention to light, shows how Nordic design can be both functional and expressive. Utzon's buildings feel calm and luminous, shaped as much by craftsmanship as by artistic vision. Nordic minimalism, which has become almost synonymous with Scandinavian identity, is not about empty rooms or strict rules. It's about balancing beauty with purpose. A Nordic home often features a few well-chosen objects. A lamp that casts warm light, a table made of light ash wood, a wool throw that softens the winter. The space feels quiet, not sterile, intentional, not rigid. This philosophy extends to public environments as well. Walk through Copenhagen's metro stations and you'll notice that the design is clean, open, and intuitive. The lighting is soft, the signage clear, and materials like steel and stone feel both durable and elegant. Scandinavian countries place enormous value on public design, believing that good architecture should be accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. Even benches in a public square, bus stops on a snowy street, or waiting areas in a ferry terminal follow the same logic. Simple, functional, pleasing. Helsinki and Stockholm carry this forward through entire districts planned around walkability, green spaces, and human-centered architecture. Urban design here is not just efficient but deeply tied to well-being. Biking infrastructure, waterfront pathways, minimalist housing blocks, and well-placed communal spaces show how design shapes daily life. Inside homes, details continue the story. Fireplaces designed to radiate heat slowly through stone. Kitchens that maximize small spaces without feeling cramped. Windows placed to capture the low winter sun. Furniture crafted to withstand generations of use. Each choice reflects an understanding of climate and lifestyle. Practical needs elevated through thoughtful design. Scandinavian architecture are unmistakable. Warm wood glowing under soft light. Big windows opening to the outdoors. Clean lines that create calm rather than emptiness. This aesthetic doesn't try to impress. It tries to make life better. Ultimately, Scandinavian design leads not because it's trendy, but because it's rooted in real human experience. In the North, beauty is not separate from function. It is function, expressed with clarity, warmth, and an enduring respect for the way people live. Scandinavia's rhythm is defined not just by geography, but by light. Up here, daylight isn't a constant. It expands and contracts dramatically, shaping how people live, travel, and experience nature. For visitors, understanding the region means understanding how the seasons work. Because the same place can feel like 4 different worlds depending on the time of year. In summer, everything changes. Above the Arctic Circle, the midnight sun keeps the sky bright for weeks, blurring the lines between day and night. Towns like Tromsø, Kiruna, and Alta never see true darkness. Even in southern cities like Stockholm or Copenhagen, nights are short and filled with a soft, pale glow. The region becomes more active. People sit outdoors late into the evening. Ferries run through the archipelagos, and hiking trails stay busy well past midnight. This constant light is not just a natural phenomenon. It influences mood, work habits, and even architecture, with many buildings designed to make the most of long summer days. Winter brings the opposite reality. From November to January, the polar night covers the far north in a blue twilight that lasts all day. In places like Svalbard, the sun doesn't rise for more than 2 months, but darkness doesn't mean inactivity. Locals adapt by creating routines that bring structure and comfort. Streets glow with warm lights, cafes fill early, and people rely on traditions that make winter feel manageable rather than overwhelming. 2 cultural concepts help explain this mindset. The first is hygge, a Danish and Norwegian word that loosely means warmth, comfort, and enjoying simple moments. It's visible in candlelit interiors, soft blankets, homemade meals, and gathering with friends during long winter nights. Hygge is not decoration. It's a survival strategy turned lifestyle. The second concept is friluftsliv, the Scandinavian idea of open-air living. Even in freezing temperatures, people head outdoors to walk, ski, and breathe fresh air. Schools send children outside daily regardless of the weather, and many adults treat time in nature as essential to mental health. This balance, cozy interiors, and active outdoor life helps people move through the year with more energy and less stress. Saunas are another key element, especially in Finland. They offer physical warmth and a mental reset during the cold months. Many lakeside cabins include a sauna, often combined with cold dips in winter. A practice that locals insist boosts mood and circulation. Visitors quickly understand why sauna culture is considered a form of therapy. For travelers, each season offers a different set of experiences. Summer is ideal for hiking in Norway's fjords, kayaking in the Stockholm archipelago, cycling in Denmark, and exploring coastal towns under endless daylight. It's also the easiest time for first-time visitors because the weather is mild and transport runs frequently. Autumn brings quieter landscapes, colorful forests in Sweden and Finland, and early chances to see the northern lights. It's a good season for travelers who prefer cooler temperatures and fewer crowds. Winter offers snow-covered cities, aurora tours in the north, Christmas markets, dog sledding in Lapland, and long evenings ideal for indoor culture, museums, cafes, and saunas. But it requires preparation. Layered clothing, waterproof boots, and flexibility with travel plans. Spring moves quickly, ice melts, birds return, and daylight grows fast. It's a brief but beautiful window when nature wakes up and cities feel more alive. Across the region, light creates daily visuals that stay with you long after you leave. You might see early morning fog drifting over frozen lakes, a soft layer that disappears as the sun rises. You might stand on a mountain ridge at midnight while the sun hangs just above the horizon, turning the sky orange. Or you might walk through a snowy street in January, hearing the crunch of ice under your boots and seeing warm light spilling from windows. In Scandinavia, seasons are not just weather. They're part of the culture, shaping routines, architecture, travel, and the way people connect with nature. Visitors who embrace these rhythms experience the North the way locals do. Guided by light, comfort, and the changing year. Traveling through Scandinavia is not just moving from one place to another. It becomes a way of seeing, shaped by landscapes, design, seasons, and the steady rhythm of life in the North. After exploring fjords, islands, Arctic towns, and modern cities, a clearer picture emerges. The region isn't defined by one highlight, but by the balance it maintains between nature and people. The landscapes alone cover an enormous range. You have Norway's deep fjords, carved by ancient glaciers and still echoing with the sound of waterfalls. Sweden stretches from fertile southern farmlands to the silent forests and aurora-lit skies of Lapland. Denmark brings softer horizons, islands, long beaches, and the low evening light over the Baltic Sea. These environments are different, but they share a common thread. They are cared for, protected, and integrated into daily life. Trail markers, ferry networks, and national parks are designed not to overwhelm nature, but to guide visitors through it responsibly. Culture adds another layer. Throughout Scandinavia, there's a strong sense of trust, calm, and community. Cities feel open and safe. Public spaces are built to be used by everyone. Museums, libraries, waterfront promenades, and bike lanes reflect a belief that quality of life should be shared. Travelers notice small things. Parents leaving strollers outside cafes. People swimming in clean urban harbors, and locals taking time to enjoy simple routines like fika or meeting with friends after work. These habits create a relaxed atmosphere where visitors can slow down and step into the local rhythm. Design is a major part of that experience. From Stockholm's sleek metro stations to Copenhagen's cycling infrastructure, Scandinavian cities reveal how thoughtful design affects daily life. It shows up in architecture, interiors, furniture, signage, and even the layout of parks. Nothing feels accidental. Materials are chosen to handle the climate. Spaces are built to let light in. Homes are warm and practical. Public buildings feel welcoming rather than imposing. Travelers often comment on how these details make movement through the region easier. Even if they don't consciously analyze it, people also leave a strong impression. While Scandinavians are often described as reserved, they are helpful, open, and proud of their surroundings. Guides in Tromsø talk about the aurora with genuine enthusiasm. Fishermen in Lofoten describe their work with a sense of continuity. Workers in food halls, baristas, museum staff. Everyone brings a quiet confidence rooted in knowing their environment well. Visitors often feel respected here, and the expectation is mutual. Respect the land, respect the space, and move with consideration. The seasons shape all these experiences. Travelers see the midnight sun, the polar night, the bright Scandinavian summer, or the deep winter that creates perfect conditions for snow activities and aurora viewing. These seasonal extremes give every destination multiple identities. A place you visited in July feels completely different in February. This variation encourages travelers to return, curious about how the landscape transforms under different light. By the end of the journey, the impressions stack up. Fjords under morning mist, islands scattered across calm waters, wooden houses painted red or yellow, glass buildings reflecting low winter sunlight, snowmobiles crossing white valleys, bikes rushing across Copenhagen bridges, and quiet northern villages where reindeer walk across frozen lakes. These images stay with people because they capture the core of Scandinavia, a region where modern life and wild nature sit side by side. Travel here works best when done responsibly. Scandinavia places enormous value on sustainability. Public transport is efficient. Electric ferries and buses are common. Hiking trails are well maintained, and local communities work hard to protect wildlife and ecosystems. Visitors can contribute by following marked paths, supporting local businesses, respecting cultural sites, and traveling with a light footprint. Scandinavia leaves a lasting impression not because it tries to impress, but because it allows you to step into a world where simplicity, beauty, and responsibility are part of everyday life. It's a region that rewards curiosity, patience, and respect, and invites travelers to return, season after season, to see how the light changes and the landscape evolves. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments section below, and make sure to check out the marvelous wonders of Scotland.